Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome back to Daily Devotions. Hope that you've had a great weekend. Today is Monday morning, and we are back with Acts chapter 24. Um, Paul is now looking at Felix. He had been taken at night, and he had been taken away from the Jewish people, and now he's at Felix's, and let's see what's going on. Felix is the governor over Caesarea. Here we go. And after 5 days, Ananias the high priest ascended with the elders and with a certain orator named Tellerus, who informed the governor against Paul. So we can imagine the disappointment of the Jews when they learned that Paul had been taken to Caesarea and committed to the jurisdiction of the Roman governor Felix. Remember, this was a group that had vowed not to eat or drink until they had killed him, and undoubtedly they found some excuse to break their vow to save themselves from starvation. But they never gave up their determination to kill Paul. So 5 days later, they go to Caesarea and they bring a lawyer with them to plead their case. And whenever he had come forth, uh, Tertullus began to accuse him. Paul began to accuse Paul, saying, "Seeing that by thee we enjoy great quietness." Now he is talking to Felix, and that very worthy deeds are done unto this nation by thy providence. We accept it always and in all places, most notable Felix, with all thankfulness. So he begins by slyly flattering the governor, notwithstanding that I may be not further tedious unto thee. I pray thee that thou wouldest hear us of thy clemency a few words. Say, we ask that you hear what we got to say. For, and this is what they have to say, we have found this man, Paul, to be a pestilent. He's become a plague fellow. He's a pestilent fellow and a mover of sedition problems. He creates riots among the Jews throughout the world and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. And Jesus was from Nazareth, who also hath gone about to profane the temple, whom we took, and we would have judged him to our law, but the chief captain Lysias came upon us and with great violence took him away from our hands. So he misrepresents the story by leaving out the part that Paul was in the temple, they drug him out of the temple, and they are the ones that started a riot, commanding his accusers to come unto thee. Then we were told we have to come to you, by examining whom they themselves mayest take knowledge of all these things whereof we accuse him. So all these people around us, they all know, and the Jews also assented, saying that these things were so. So that was their argument to Felix. He profanes our temple. We would have taken him and judged him to our law, because they knew Roman laws. Romans didn't care about their religious tradition. They knew that. So we would have done it, but one of your guys, your chief captain, fell upon us, and with great violence took Paul out of our hands. We had it covered. Then Paul, after the governor had beckoned unto him to speak, so he heard his side, now it's Paul's turn, answered, "For as much as I know that thou hast been of many years a judge unto this nation, I do the more cheerfully answer thee for myself." Hey, I don't need a lawyer. They may need one, but I don't. "Because that thou mayest understand that there have been yet 12 days since I went to Jerusalem to worship." So Paul was well aware of Felix's knowledge of Jewish customs to go to Jerusalem for feast and worship. In this instance, it was Pentecost, the feast of Pentecost. "And they neither found me in the temple disputing any man, neither raising up any people, neither in the synagogues nor in the city. Neither can they prove the things whereof they accuse me. But this I confess unto you, that after the way, people of the way, Jesus followers, but I confess that, as a Jesus follower, which they call heresy, I worship the God of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law and the prophets." He was attempting to make plain that he had not given up his faith in Jehovah, but rather found Jehovah in Jesus. He said, "Look, I still worship the God of my fathers. I just know that it's in Jesus, that in Jesus dwells all the fullness of the Godhead bodily. There's some things that I know and have hope toward God, which they themselves also allow." Look, I have hope toward God, and they allow me to have hope toward God, "that there shall be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and the unjust, And herein do I exercise myself, to have always a conscience void of offense toward God and toward man. Paul believed, taught, and lived in such a way that it ensured a good conscience toward God and men. Now, after many years, I came to bring alms to my nation and offering. Whereupon certain Jews from Asia found me purified in the temple, neither with a multitude, nor with tumult, who ought to have been here before thee, and object, if they have had aught against me, saying, hey, the Jews that were from Asia that caused problems, they should be here too. Where are they at? Why aren't they here? If they got a problem with me, they should come say it. Or else, lest uh, let these same here say if they have found any evil doing. But since they're not here, let the ones right here in this room, let them tell me if they found any evil while I stood before the council. Except to be for this one voice, this is all they got on me. This is the only thing, this is the only thing they can truly bring me here for. I cried among them, touching the resurrection of the dead, and am called into question by you this day. Look, whenever I had my voice, whenever I was in their council, all I said was, I believe in the resurrection of the dead. I'm a Pharisee. And that's the only thing, because there's probably Sadducees in this group before Felix. And remember, they didn't believe. Paul concluded his defense by explaining that he had gone to Jerusalem to present his offering. The only activity he had engaged in was that he purified himself in the temple. He pointed out that his accusers could not identify a single offense unless they considered him crying out in the council that he was a Pharisee, emphasizing his belief in the resurrection. He then closed his defense to Felix on the note that he had been called in question by the Jews for his belief in the resurrection, which of course involved his belief in the resurrection of Jesus. And when Felix heard these things, having more perfect knowledge of that way, or Jesus followers, he deferred himself them and said, when Lysias the chief captain shall come down, I will know the utmost of the matter. Look, I'm going to bring the chief captain in. We're going to get to the bottom of this. And he commanded a centurion to keep Paul and let him have liberty, and that he should forbid none of his acquaintances to minister or come into him. So keep this guy safe, let him have liberty around the castle. If anybody wants to come see him, no big deal. And after certain days, after Felix came with his wife, who was a Jewess, he sent for Paul and heard him concerning faith in Christ. Felix was greatly impressed with Paul's defense, and he wanted to hear more about Jesus. And as he reasoned of righteousness, temperance, and judgment to come, Felix trembled and answered, go thy way for this time. When I have a convenient season, I will call for you. This convicting power of God through the preaching of the gospel caused Felix to tremble, but he was unwilling to pay the price for salvation in Christ, which Paul urged upon him, and he looked for a convenient season. He hoped that money should have been given to Paul. He was hoping that Paul would bribe him to let him go. Wherefore he sent him often and communed with him. Look, they had many meetings over a course of 2 years. But after 2 years, Festus came to Felix's room, and Felix, willing to show the Jews a pleasure, left Paul bound. Felix's term as governor had now expired, and he was succeeded by Festus. Felix never gave Paul a second trial, but through many private conversations was definitely convinced of his innocence. However, to please the Jews, he left him in prison until he came into the jurisdiction of Festus. So, one big thought that I have for you this evening, or this morning. The verse that troubles me is whenever it says, Felix trembled and answered, go thy way for this time, for when I have a convenient season, I'll call for you. For 2 years, Felix had the company of Paul, but he was able to reason away his conviction. He turned conviction into a debate. He turned a stirring soul into a Q&A session. He wanted Jesus on an intellectual level. He was very curious intellectually, but not on a level where it changed his life. When it's more convenient, he said, I'll live for God when it's more convenient. Be careful not to look for God in convenience. When things are more convenient, when this is settled down, when my life is at a better spot, when this virus is over, whenever these things are lifted, whatever it is, whenever I'm 5 years down the road, whenever I'm settled into my job, whenever it's more convenient, I'll give Jesus another look. Be careful not to look at God in convenience, or you'll never find him, because there will always be things that come up. Felix's position and power meant more to him than the condition of his soul. What is more important to you? And what are you putting Jesus on the back burner for in the name of convenience? That's the question. That's the big thought, and one that you're going to have to answer yourself. Anyways, hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.